What you are about to hear is an all-access, inside look at the life and legacy of an incredible man. I had the fortune of interviewing my grandfather, Mr. Lenny Brooke, just a couple weeks ago on his 90th birthday, and he spoke words of inspiration. He was uplifting, and he's somebody that has the experience to give over wisdom that not only motivates, but is truly helpful and insightful. Mr. Lenny Brooke is the right person to have a discussion with and ask some of the questions, because after 90 years, he's still as sharp as a tack and as happy as ever. He gives us kind of a bright and happy look on the world when others see it as, especially in this time, a rather morbid and scary place. Mr. Lenny Brooke's take on the world is far from dark and scary. Summarize and put his legacy into, frankly, one word. He is the epitome of what it means to be a mensch. I hope you will enjoy the interview. And the beginning is a toast, a l'chaim, some short words by Mr. Jeffrey Brooke, my father, speaking about his father, Mr. Lenny Brooke. I was only able to grab the microphone a couple minutes into his talk, so that's why it starts out in the middle of his toast. But as you will hear, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. My father speaks brilliantly, and after my father ends with some beautiful words, we have the opportunity to ask a couple different poignant questions, and I hope you will enjoy this episode. The audio quality isn't what it usually is because we weren't in a studio, we were outside. My mother made a beautiful, beautiful event for him, and just like the Mishnah in Avos says, that there's supposed to be certain mindsets and opportunities available to a person based on their age. When someone is 18, they are to get married, and they reach their strength soon after that. Wisdom, adulthood, experience. When a person turns 90, he is lasuach. And staying away from the first shot of the commentators, which has something to do with a pit or a grave, we follow the second shot in the commentators. Rashi tells us lasuach could also mean to speak, because an older person, it may lead us to understand this Rashi, is somebody who should speak because, well, they don't care what anyone else thinks about them, so they can say the truth, but also they have the life experiences to speak words of truth. I hope you enjoy this episode. This is the interview of Mr. Lenny Brooke on his 90th birthday.
The price of bread was 10 cents a loaf. And other things that happened, Bonnie and Clyde were killed. Anybody know who Bonnie and Clyde were?
They were tremendous murderers.
They were right. They made the first most wanted list. This is before there was an FBI. They were created to get Bonnie and Clyde.
Were they really?
There was a bunch of bank robberies back in the day, right, Bob? And the bank robbers were like, became a thing in the early 30s. It was the Depression. Hitler, Yamach Shemo, was coming to power. That was it. And they created the FBI to get people. And they find their first big get was Bonnie and Clyde. The Washington Redskins were 2 years old. Wow. They were 2 years old. They would go on to win 3 Super Bowls.
It was the last time.
Okay, that's mean. A lot has happened. There have been probably over 20 presidents since then, I'm going to guess. Second World War. Second, right.
2016.
And in that time period, my father, Pop, Lev Hirsch, has been many things to many people. He's been an excellent husband, and he's been a wonderful father. He's been he's been a wonderful grandfather, and most recently, he's been an excellent great-grandfather. Amazing. And he's been Zocha. He's merited to go to probably tens of birthday parties, of brisim, of bar mitzvahs, of joyous family occasions. And he's also been a very well-renowned and respected business owner and president of a shul, and generally has accumulated a reputation for honesty and menschlichkeit in the community. He's been a friend and a mentor to many, and he's been a great grandfather and great-grandfather to all of you. Before I just finish my toast, I just want to thank my partner in crime, Bonnie and Clyde. So it's Amy and Jeff. I want to thank Mom Brooke for tremendous effort. I want to thank all of the grandchildren and great-grandchildren, and particularly all the grandchildren and grandchildren-in-law who contributed both their time and their effort and their presence to get here. That was amazing. That by itself will be a gift by and of itself, and I'm sure that Pop tremendously appreciates it. In doing all of these wonderful things, Pop has always taught by example. He's not a teacher. He's not somebody who's going to say, well, this is what you have to do, this is what we have to do. He leads by example. And his example is always that of kindness and gentle musar. And he's taught me a great many things in my life. He taught me how to drive, which I taught me, and I've conveyed that as best I can to my kids, who now drive. And I did the best I could. He taught me how to be a salesman. I took over a sales route one summer. That was a real challenge. And every single one of the stops that I made for Pop, I didn't always get the sale. Many times I did not get the sale, but every single one of the targets told me what a mensch Pop was and how much they enjoy doing business with him. One of the lessons Pop told me, and I used this just the other day on a client. Somebody was going to approach me about representation, and he was saying, like, well, I heard this other lawyer could do a good job, but I didn't hear good things about him. And I said, you know what? I don't know about this other lawyer, but my father taught me that the way you get a sale is by saying what you can do and what your qualities are, not by tearing the other guy down. And that was something that Pop taught me. He taught me many, many things. He taught me how to throw a baseball. He taught me, but really what he taught me was that you have to live your life like a mensch. You just have to do what's right when the challenges and tribulations of life come down the pike. Step up, and they may not always be good, but you have to do what's right in the face of every situation. So I just want to thank him for all of his good guidance as a father and as a patriarch, head of the family, for all that he's done. And I'd ask all of you to raise your glass and to toast to my father, Leonard Brooke, on the occasion of his 90th birthday. I want to thank him for being all of these things, but most of all, I want to thank him for being my dad. L'chaim, l'chaim, l'chaim.
She was really adorable. And, of course, Isaac and Michael that came along, which not so adorable, but they with the beards. And the fact that they live in Yerushalayim, which I think is good. And, Isaac, that's wonderful. And Yeshira. And you're right. Anyway,
if you could give somebody a piece of advice, how to live a successful life,
you do good. You try to live life right. You don't try to take advantage of anybody. You don't, pardon the expression, but you don't screw anybody. You do what you're supposed to do in life to be a mensch. If you promise somebody money, you pay them. You don't try to duck them. If you tell somebody you're going to do something, you do it. You try to live a good, proper life. Everyone knows what's right and what's wrong. You don't do what's wrong. I mean, sometimes you're borderline, but you try and you aim for a proper, good life. And Jeffrey did that, and I think he was raised that way. Amy is that way, and of course, my wife of 62. Is that right? How many years? 62 years. We've been married longer than any. Yeah. And, so I want to thank everybody that's here, but mostly my wife for putting up with my cigars for 62 years. I know it's been bad, but it's been a lot.
There's a lot of people that have good days like you pop up,
right,
and there's a lot of people that have bad days.
Correct.
What would you say to somebody on a bad day? How does he keep his chin?
I would say to hold the course, because good days are coming. Bad days come to an end. It's not bad all the time. If you steer the course, pray to Hashem or whatever, do good days are going to come. It's going to change. The weather is not rainy every day. The sun comes out. And I think the same thing about life. Good days will have a sunlight. And I can only say I appreciate and love the fact that all of you are here. My child, my daughter-in-law, which is actually my daughter, is here. She is. And my grandchildren are all here, and great-grandchildren that are here. What did he say?
Hello. Hello. So something like this pop up, and in regards to you've seen 90 years of American history, American Jewish history. You probably have a perspective that you can give to somebody if he wants to build a family that his children respect. So you say that the point of life, you always spoke about being a mensch. If you could talk about somebody being more than a mensch, how could they live as a good spouse? If you want to be somebody that has a family, that their children look up to them and their grandchildren look up to them, how is it that you become a good grandfather and raise a good family?
You're a good person by following the law. You don't try to break the law. I think also Judaically, you try to live by the Chumash. You try to live by the good book, and you live by the regular book, the laws of the land. And yes, I have seen a lot. Roosevelt was president. I remember the Second World War when my grandmother was killed by the Nazis. She was in Europe. She never made it to America. That was Grandma Becky's.
Well, let's actually talk about that. Your parents are who? Your father is?
They both came from Europe.
Your father's name is?
Isidore.
And your mother's name is?
Rebecca.
And Isidore and Rebecca lived where? Where were they born?
They were born in Covna-Gaberna.
What's Covna-Gaberna?
It's the same country. Okay.
Okay, Covna-Gaberna in Lita.
Right.
They
came to Berkeley. Berkeley.
Did they survive the war?
They weren't here before the war. They were in the 20s. They came in the 1920s.
1920s they came to America.
They were here, I'd say 15 years before the Second World War, at least.
Okay, and where did they move to?
Berkeley.
Where's Berkeley?
Berkeley's in Norfolk. It's over the bridge.
Oh, that's a town.
Like you going to Portsmouth.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
And Isidore Brooke is your dad, and he was part of a synagogue when he grew up?
B'nai Israel. We grew up in B'nai Israel. He was one of the, well, they didn't live that long. They moved to Norfolk. They'd been drawn.
They were third cousins.
Who is that?
Grandpa Izzy and Grandma Becky.
How did Grandpa Izzy end up in Norfolk, Virginia?
They were related right down the line. Everybody that came over from Europe had family that was intermarried somewhere. That's the way it was in Europe. And then they didn't know each other.
Grandpa Izzy came to Bayonne, New Jersey first. He was painting houses.
He came first to Connecticut.
What's Connecticut?
Connecticut.
Putnam, Connecticut.
Right. From Putnam was a very Jewish community. And from Putnam, he moved to Bayonne, and then he moved to Brooklyn to be with we have relative's son. His name is son. The last name, Becky's. No, Grandpa Izzy's. No, his name. My father's uncle was Son.
Maybe that's why they were related.
Son. S-O-H-N. Son.
Well, maybe you could speak just a minute about. I would actually like to really hear about this. How is it that you met Grandma? Who introduced you to Grandma?
Here we go.
I want to hear the whole story from beginning to end and put it on record.
It's what you call in Chinese bashert.
Bashert.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Bashert.
Grandma and you were meant to be. I want to hear the whole story. What was the first time you met Grandma?
First time in 1961. No, 1960 or 61.
How'd you work your magic, Pop-Up?
Yeah.
We're going to have to cut that out. You met Grandma where?
Very quickly, very briefly, Grandma came to Virginia Beach for vacation with two other girls. Who every year they took her vacation to different cities. Two roommates.
Two roommates from college.
One of which, by the way, is a side, one of which son murdered someone.
We're going to have to, let's cut that out there.
And this son was arrested.
Okay.
And Mom's girlfriend was trying to hide her son. He was in his 20s.
Okay, we're going to take a quick commercial break here. Quick commercial break. We're going to do a quick commercial break here. We'll be back to the show in about 3 minutes here.
She died. Anyway, Grandma came down.
Okay, let's get back to Grandma.
Grandma came down. Grandma came to Virginia Beach, and I was one of her blind dates, which she had many of.
Many blind dates. And where'd you guys have your first blind date?
I was the least of the ones.
Where?
Oceana Naval
Air Station.
I was the least one she thought anything of.
Uh-huh. Not true. Grandma says not true. Okay. How many times did you date Grandma?
With Grandma, no, I didn't propose in.
How many dates?
Grandma, we had like 3 or 4 dates. We met. Isaac, Michael.
There was a big delay in the middle.
She went back. This is just one of her vacation dates. So she went back. She went back to Waterbury.
I had a boyfriend named Lenny.
Right.
You can only hear what's in the microphone. You got to talk into the microphone, Grandma.
Her boyfriend's name was Lenny. So anyway, I didn't think twice about it. So I wrote her, and she wrote back. She said, "I'm on the verge of being engaged, and I'm not interested in another romance." So about that time, very briefly, our friend, Billy Bernstein, which was a friend of mine for many years, a blessed memory. He has passed away. His wife is Grandma's cousin, and she was from West Hartford, Connecticut, and she came down here to go to Old Dominion University. So she got married to my friend Billy Bernstein from Norfolk. She met Billy here, and they got engaged and got married. We were invited to the wedding. So I went to Hartford. It was West Hartford for the wedding, and Grandma was there again. And we saw each other again. And from there...
Could you give Grandma the microphone for a second? I want to hear Grandma for 1 second. Grandma, I want to ask you, Grandma, what were your first thoughts of Pop-Up? I want you talking to the microphone. Grandma, hold the microphone, please, if you will. When you first saw Pop-Up, what was your first...
I thought he was very handsome and very charming.
Okay.
But geographically inconvenient.
Okay.
So we saw each other again at Bernstein wedding in Connecticut. And then I think I invited her down to Norfolk for New Year's, which I already had a date for. Luckily, the girl I had a date with got sick.
Okay.
And her name was Hadassah. She was ultra from. Her father was a chaplain in the Army. And anyway, she canceled. I called Grandma and said she'd still come. And Grandma came. And then after that, we dated in neutral territory.
Okay.
With Washington, New York City, places that were in the middle somewhere.
Okay. And where'd you get married?
In Waterbury, Connecticut.
Waterbury.
And
your first house, where'd you buy your first house?
At the yeshiva in Waterbury, Connecticut.
You got married in the yeshiva of Waterbury.
Those days, it was Bethel Temple.
Bethel Temple. And you bought your first house. Where did your grandma move into your first house?
First house on Quincy Street. Yeah, our first house. Apartment was in Birmingham, Sussex, and Norfolk. But how do you spell? I have to ask Jeffrey. Do you know how do you spell?
My first thing I could spell was Quincy, which was our first.
He was like 2 years old. I said, "How do you spell Quincy?" He's a singer. Quincy. Pronounce it very, very, very cute.
Wow.
Yeah.
Who officiated at your wedding?
Our wedding was Rabbi Smith. Rabbi Smith in Waterbury.
Okay,
Yeah.
very good.
He's
And
a-
then how did you get in? What is it that you do for business for your your main career is at Southern Packing.
Well, I was doing.
How'd you get into that?
I was doing elsewise.
What else
I
did
was
you do before
manager of a furniture store in Portsmouth, and I was very happy there. And our father, Grandpa, was having trouble with his partner at Southern Packing, and so he said, "I'll buy him out if you and your brothers will come work here. I can't handle it by myself." So I quit my job and went to work at Southern Packing, and I was there until COVID came, and I was told not to come in anymore. They don't need me at COVID, so I was glad to stay home. That was, 3 years ago? I've been happy. Yeah, more. Yeah. And we had a wonderful time with his father, Jeffrey.
Jeffrey.
And another son, Sam, who was really, really great. You would have loved Sam.
I would love if could you I'll be honest with you, Pop Up. I want to put it on record. Is it okay? If you could describe, Isaac and I have never met Sam Brooke, and we also have a son or a grandson that's named for Sam Brooke.
Correct.
If this little one is going to grow into being a future Sam Brooke, could you describe a little bit what Sam Brooke was like?
Sam was great. I mean, he was a little bit of a party animal, I think.
Okay.
But he went to.
I know that story. I know he took a shot with the water, with the fire.
He broke some windows in our house. He was like 2 years old, 3 years.
Okay, but let's tell a good story. What was his real? Was he genuine? Was he authentic? Was he a smart kid?
He was a sports nut. Absolutely a sport. He knew like every football team, every baseball team. He knew every game Virginia played. He was really.
Was he smart? Was he smart?
Very smart. Very, very, very.
Was he handsome? What did he look like?
Like me, he was handsome.
How tall was? How tall? Papa, microphone to the mouth.
Excuse me.
How tall was he?
He was about 6'2", 6'3".
6'2".
Yeah,
Was
he was
it?
tall. He was taller than you. Maybe 6'1".
We'll be back after a quick break.
Be sure to subscribe to the Motivation Congregation on WhatsApp, where you can wake up on a highlight every single day with a Torah talk that is crafted to inspire and enlighten. You can join the broadcast list on WhatsApp and receive the videos directly to your WhatsApp inbox every single day. Plus, when you join on WhatsApp, you can stream the Motivation Congregation WhatsApp status that has all access to great newly published Sepharim book reviews. You can watch the weekly trips to the Sepharim store to stay in the know about all things of Torah literature, plus with behind-the-scenes looks, bonus content, and deep dives into great Torah sages' private lives. When we discuss them on their yard sites, there is a lot going on, and you can scroll down to find the link to join us on WhatsApp. I hope that you do, and I hope that you'll reach out and say hello. And once again, now back to the show, and I hope you enjoy the rest of this episode. 6'1"? He was tall. He was tall. If you remember a story about Sam and my father, I can't say his first name, but it begins with a J.
Yeah.
If you remember a memory between Sam Brooke and my father, what memory comes to mind with Sam and my dad?
That's a good question. I don't know. Would you know one that you could think of between Sam and Jeffrey?
Well, every night after dinner, they went and played basketball together.
Where do they play basketball?
In the backyard.
In the backyard? You had a basketball hoop in Oak Grove Road?
Yeah.
And who would win?
And Sam's.
Who won the game?
I never heard of it.
But it was very violent.
It was very violent.
In Jeffrey's room in our house, we had a hoop that hooked over the door to the closet.
Yeah, a Nerf hoop. We had this Nerf hoop.
Every night, he and Sam would go in that door in the bed close the door.
Yeah.
And they thought the house was coming down.
Oh,
Knocking and
gosh.
banging.
That's what what was Sam?
One of the greatest things I remember kick out of with Sam, when he was getting chemo at Children's Hospital, they had a go-kart in the lobby that you could get a raffle for.
Gasoline go-kart.
Right.
And every time we went there, I took $1 a raffle. And then it got to be the end of December, and I said to him, "What do you want for Hanukkah?" He said, "I want that go-kart."
Oh, wow.
I said, "Well, I'll buy 25 of those, but if you don't get it,
Yeah.
there's no more present."
It's not it.
We get a phone call
Microphone.
saying that he won it.
He won the go-kart.
And
He won the go-kart.
We had a station wagon at the time. We had to go the same day out to the oceanfront. I was at the Cavalier.
Wow.
Yeah, and pick it up.
Wow.
So we picked it up, and at the time we had this stupid Cocker Spaniel dog. And I mean, say, she was stupid.
How many dogs do you have?
A lot of them. But that was the love of his
Okay,
life.
we have a Cocker Spaniel,
Yeah.
and Sam is there.
When Sam was sick.
Keep going with the story. Keep going with the story.
When Sam was sick in bed, the dog used to get in bed with him and sit with him the whole night.
Man's best friend.
Anyway, so he goes in the go-kart, and as soon as the stupid dog hears the go-kart, she goes outside by herself and sits in the go-kart with him.
The motor
So
started up,
this
she
was
would
the
go
way.
out.
She went with him every time he'd get in the go-kart.
Amazing. The Torah calls a dog in Hebrew kelev, which means like a heart,
Right.
which basically means dog is your ultimate best friend. It's just fully emotional. It loves you.
We took her up to Charlottesville.
Microphone, I can't hear you.
We took her up to Charlottesville, and she stayed in the dorm with him for a couple of weeks.
Incredible. Where was in the dorm? Where?
At UVA.
University of Virginia.
I don't know what to call them. They have New Year's.
I mean, that was the love of his life.
They
And
were
we,
new dogs.
we had lots of dogs. We loved all of them, but she was stupid.
Incredible. You
She
guys
was a
are
stupid dog.
Grandma, so you came down from Connecticut, you met Pop, you got married, and then you moved out, you moved to Oak Grove Road, correct? There's only one house. You moved to Oak Grove Road.
Third house.
No, that was, we lived in an apartment when we first got married.
Where's that?
Then we,
Corner.
in Ward's Corner.
Okay.
And it was
Part of
called
Malta.
Sussex. And then we bought our first house, which was in Forest Park,
Where's that?
off of Chesapeake Boulevard.
Okay.
That was a house that was
That was a
brand new.
beautiful house. We loved that.
So why'd you move from that house to Oak Grove
Your
Road?
Dad was like three years old then.
How did Dad was 3 in that house?
Yeah.
And how'd you get to Oak Grove Road? How did you move to Oak Grove Road?
Because the school system was so good there, and the school system where this house was
Integrated
was not good.
And then what? COVID. Oh, wow. We're going to get to that. That's a for sure question. And then how long was it that you lived in Oak Grove Road and then you moved out?
31 years.
31 years. You moved to Virginia.
So where we are now.
21 years.
21 years. And then could you speak to about if you remember the life or marriage of Jeffrey to daughter-in-law Amy? Could you talk just about that day, that change of life? What'd you think of Mom, Mrs. Amy Zuckerman?
First time I think we saw her together, we had never met Amy, and we heard about it.
Microphone.
I'm using it. And one day we were, all the Jews used to go to 34th Street at Virginia Beach. That was Little Israel.
That wasn't Amy.
Yes. And Jeff came up. Jeff, Jeffrey came up with Amy and said, I want to introduce you to the girl that I've been dating. I remember that.
Microphone.
Remember, yeah. And I said, oh my God, Jeffrey, is that the best you could do? And I said it was wonderful. She was very pretty. And I think she's a nice girl. And
Decent.
We knew her parents, not well. But,
Microphone.
we knew her mother. And anyway,
Mary.
it was a wonderful.
Beautiful.
They
Beautiful.
were-
Okay, I would like to actually.
They got married at Bethel.
Uh-huh.
I'll hold it. Okay, I can hold it.
I'm holding it to your mouth.
Okay. I'll
Okay.
hold it.
Right up to your mouth.
They got married at Bethel.
Bethel.
And Mom and I went to the wedding. My father was desperately ill at the time. He was like 1 month from dying. And he came to the wedding like a scarecrow. He barely could walk. He had a cane. Yeah. So, they had lymphoma.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's Grandma Becky.
Didn't want him to walk down the aisle with a cane.
Grandma Becky lived about 10 years ago. She was 102 years old. She lived about till about 50. Y'all were probably born.
Yeah?
Yeah. You probably didn't know her, but 2001. Yeah, you were probably. Yeah, she was living in the same house. She was living on Hampton Boulevard in the same house where you lived.
Grandma Becky saw the Tsar of Russia.
Did she really?
Oh yeah, yeah. You bet. Can you imagine? Can you imagine the last convention of the Civil War veterans was held in Norfolk, Virginia. The last convention. It was on Granby Street. I went there, and 2 Confederate soldiers in their gray uniforms. I cried when I saw that.
Oh my gosh!
Actually, two. You know, and to see 2 guys in the Civil War was ancient. There's 2 veterans from the Civil War.
Next question: How come you married a Yankee?
She became a Southerner. She converted to the South. But anyway, they went on a convertible in the back seat. They were over 100 years old. And I think both of them died right after that. But they were Confederate, soldiers.
I got it.
Okay.
Pop. Let me ask. You've been alive for 90 years. You've probably seen a whole lot. What's the craziest thing that you've seen? I mean, Isaac just was mentioning to me that COVID, the entire world shutting down, was a pretty crazy thing.
Yes.
People can't exactly fathom, like my daughters, they can't fathom that the world shut down. When you think of the craziest thing, I think you've witnessed a couple world wars. What's the most insane and crazy thing you've ever witnessed?
I think I'd have to go with World War II because at the time we lived on Hampton Boulevard. And, I was a teenager, maybe, and the trucks were going day and night hauling equipment to the war because the ships left from Norfolk, from Hampton Boulevard at the end. And they were flatbed trucks of tanks. They're like hours. They would go by, truck after truck with tanks on them. And then the planes were flying out of Norfolk. And it was a lot going on. Sailors, oh my God. Norfolk went over 300,000 people. The sailors were everywhere. Sailors all over downtown. They everywhere. Rode the street, could end off, got streetcars. Sailors they took over the city.
Wow.
And, it was a really trying time.
And how about in 90 years, what's the most...
Yeah, okay. You having dessert? Is it good? That's good.
Papa, maybe you could speak to a minute about if you want, we definitely just spoke about the hardest thing, but in COVID, when you talk about COVID, how was it that life changed during the COVID when the world shut down? How was it that things became rather calm? Just talk about COVID for a minute for the kids that never heard of it.
Is that good? No, that's what I figured. Yeah, it's good. Yeah, I'm almost ready. I'm working on it.
All right, Pop. All right.
COVID was a tough time.
It was a tough time. That's it. That's what it is.
Oh, yeah. COVID was tough. And then, and we got by. Luckily, I had COVID. I got it afterwards. I got COVID last year.
All right.
Yeah, for 3 days, it was nothing.
Okay, so let's say I want to picture that I'm listening to this interview in 30 years. You're 120 years old, and we're listening to the interview together. And maybe we could just highlight. I want that we should be able to highlight. Oh, wait. Happy birthday. You can put the microphone down. Take the microphone. To you. Happy birthday to Bob.